Now, this kind of leads to the next question I had for you is what are some of the challenges a person with ADHD faces when they're job hunting? I mean, you're kind of hinting at what some of these attention, but what are some of the challenges they face?
Well, when you're job hunting, you probably have had a little bit of a history of not very successful job experiences, maybe difficulties with the setting at work, the politics at work, whatever, or just organizing your time so that you can complete projects, getting along with your coworkers. There can be all sorts of challenges. They figure that most people that have ADHD are about 49% underemployed.
Wow.
Yeah.
But there's different degrees of severity.
Yeah, it's like a continuum. You know, you can be just a touch of ADHD, or you can be severely ADHD. You know, it's a spectrum. And certain situations are going to bring out those behaviors. So you want to be very careful about that. You know, looking at, you know, how you get triggered in certain situations.
Okay. When do you think it's appropriate to disclose that you have this issue in the job hunting or interviewing process?
Right.
What is the timing that you know?
Well, there's usually 3 different places where you could disclose to an employer that you might have a difficulty with ADHD. It could be before you apply or in the application process. It could be during the interview. It could be after you're hired and your job is beginning and you're discussing the details of your job. Or you could choose not at all to disclose it and hope that down the road things will smooth out. Now there's pros and cons to each time, each situation. If you disclose it right off, you may be easily disqualified.
Yeah.
If you disclose it in the interview, you might get a sense of how understanding your potential employer is to your situation or educated about this disability or tolerant. The predominant time, though, that most people talk about it is after they've been hired. And then at that point, when you're discussing the nature of the job, it's probably, in my opinion, the best time to talk about it.
Like in the first few weeks?
First few weeks of the job. Bearing in mind that once you disclose this to your employer, the employer, if they have 15 or more employees, are required to deal with the issue of accommodations. So it's all in how you approach it. You need to go in there thinking that you're educating the employer and helping enlighten him rather than demand or tell him that you need certain accommodations. You can share with the employer what you've learned over your work experience or what skills you bring to the situation and how you've learned to manage your ADD.
Well, we are going to talk about after. I was going to ask you for a question in between this, but I wanted to have you discuss a little later what some of the things an employer could do.
Certainly.
But I thought we would move to the graphic that you brought along. You brought along a couple of general tips for actions a person with ADHD can take to be effective on the job. So I thought I would read the bullet points and we'll show it to the audience so you can comment on them. Okay?
Okay. Thanks.
So the first one is managing your workspace, and you say keep a calendar and color code it.
That's right. I think most folks benefit from having as much structure as possible. If you don't have some time management technique, it really can throw you off. And often good organization and management say color code it, work activities or ones that you have to go outside the office for, or family activities. Bring your highlighters and make them different colors for the different types of activities that you would be involved in. And it helps you visualize and understand how your day is being paced.
Okay. You also say to build structure and routine balance and take frequent breaks. Can you talk a little bit about that?
People with ADHD have a hard time with concentration and can easily be distracted or have a lot of confusing distractions. So you want to structure your work setting. If you can get an office with a closed door, or if you're working in other types of settings, make sure that you set some structures and boundaries around this is your space and your territory, and keep it as organized as possible. Some of the things to do might be to have some white noise, maybe like a fan.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Maybe having a white noise machine, or turn off your phone ringer until you're ready to handle calls. Set aside a time of day when you're going to get your phone calls. Set aside a time of day when you're going to maybe read your emails.
That's a good suggestion, yeah.
And really organize your day in half-hour increments.
Yeah. I used to listen to tapes of the ocean, except sometimes I thought I would get sunburned sitting out there, but I would listen to the tapes because it would have this,
little lulling effect.
But now you say take frequent breaks, so they need to also get out.
You need to get up and stretch and move around because your energy gets very clogged. And it's important. Some people work better standing up, and you can get a workstation that goes from sitting and moves your computer up so that you're at eye level, and you can stand and sit if you need to do that. And it's always very good to do some stretches and move your energy through your body.
Okay. You also say break projects into manageable chunks.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's good advice for everybody, right?
Sure. I think if we set really lofty long-term goals that are very idealistic, it's not going to be easy to accomplish them. So we often talk about SMART goals.
Right.
In other words, shorter term, situationally based. It's a certain situation that you're going to...
time-based.
Time-based and action-oriented.
Right.
And there's a result.
Yeah. In fact, I do that with all my clients.
Right.
We really try to break the goals into manageable ones because you can be so overwhelmed by saying, I need to change jobs. And you're saying that it's even more important for people with ADHD, right?
Exactly. An important thing, too, is if you're going to have a supervisor who sets goals with you, asking him to break that into smaller bits and have some kind of result that happens at the end of a shorter period of time to share and talk about. That usually helps make the deadlines less dreadful. And also giving the person freedom to figure out how to get to the deadline.
You mean that there's more than one way to get a positive outcome? Right.
You don't have to do it just this way. And that's what ADD people need. They need that fluidity in the job and the creative, work on one little bit of a project that all leads to the same goal, and maybe this project here and that project there. But you kind of weave in and out of them to get to your end
it sounds
goal.
like this is a slightly different question, but it sounds like if you have some suspicion that you might have this, you should be checked out and just know for yourself, right? So that you can do these accommodations and not stay in the dark. Would you agree with that?
Yes. I think these are all good advice for a lot of people, but...
I mean, that you should be diagnosed if you're,
If you think you have it, it's worth diagnosing.
Okay. So, and then also in communication with others, you have some recommendations there. You say take charge of your own training process. What's that about?
Oftentimes, we don't own our challenges, and it's not expecting the employer to train you to get his job, but for you to say, wait a minute, I learn best by observing you do it, letting me try it, let me try it on my own, and then let me show somebody else.
Okay.
That's the best way for people to learn, if they can do a hands-on type of exchange. So asking the supervisor employer to work with you to learn chunks of the learning tasks that are involved in the training, and have him work with you in that kind of method.
Okay. You also say build teamwork by aligning with non-ADHD staff. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think if you can educate rather than demand or, it's important to let your coworkers know that, this is your work style and there's some pros to it. You're highly creative, you're very excitable, and you can create enthusiasm. But at the same time, you need some structure. So align with people whom you see are highly structured and work with them on projects.
Okay.
And tell them that you appreciate their structure so that they're holding you into that deadline or holding you accountable for whatever tasks that you have to do.